I hope you enjoy the interview that I did today. And this was super exciting for me because I got to interview Dr. Terry Wahls. She agreed to go on my podcast and my YouTube channel. And we had a great conversation, and I want you to hear it. She is such a wonderful person, and she has just deep smarts in healing MS. I also want to let you know that if you've followed me for a while, you know that I am against MS drugs. I am. And the reason I am is because I healed myself holistically, totally, 100%. And I want you to know that I'm not totally against all drugs. I'm not. I know we need some drugs for some instances, short term, but I myself am against long-term drugs. Now, Terry is not. She being a doctor, and when you're ingrained and you're taught to be a physician, you're taught to prescribe drugs. And she feels like people should be taking their drugs to help eliminate relapses. I myself don't think that they're needed. I did not tell her this, but it's in my heart. I know that they're not needed. Long-term drugs, I know that they do more damage to our bodies in the long run. And we had a conversation at the end, and I asked her about weaning off drugs. And she has a longer process of weaning off drugs, depending on where you're at. Everybody's different. But she also mentioned, and I agree with her wholeheartedly, that it is our body and our decision, right? No matter what doctor or neurologist will tell you, you have to take MS drugs, you do not. It's up to you. You are the sole decision maker. It is up to you. And like I said, I know that they're not needed because I healed myself holistically. Now, Terry did ask me if I had an MRI later, and she agrees because she's a doctor. She thinks that we need to have an MRI, throughout the process, just so you can measure where you're at. Now, I never had a final MRI. I'm going on how I feel. I know that I healed myself 100% from MS. And there are lots of people who I've talked to who need to get those MRIs as validation to show that they're getting better. So it just depends on what kind of person you are. I just didn't want to spend that extra $5,000, right? If you have a high deductible, you're going to be paying for that MRI. And I actually had a medical medium, if you believe in medical mediums, one told me that I totally healed my lesions in my brain. She said she looked into my brain and she said, Adrienne, you have no lesions. You totally healed your MS diagnosis. And I believe her. And it's because of how I feel. I haven't had any symptoms for almost 11 years now. And I don't need an MRI for myself to prove that that's the case. So anyway, I do totally support Terry Wahls and what she's doing. And you'll learn that she changed my life and she's changed millions of lives of those who were diagnosed with MS. So I hope you enjoy our interview. Well, hello, everybody. I want to introduce somebody very special today, and she's going to be on my podcast and my YouTube channel. I've got both, and I can't believe she's here. I'm very thankful that she agreed to talk to me today. And I am here with Dr. Terry Wahls, the original Dr. Terry Wahls. Thank you so much for coming, Terry.
Hey, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Well, I want to start. I've got about 8 questions for you. I want to start by telling you that your 2011 TED Talk changed my life.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've heard this a lot. It's the whole reason why you're why I'm sitting here talking to you today. Your courage, getting up on that stage, has changed millions of lives, including my own.
Mhm.
And I want to tell you the way I found you and how I found your TED Talk. I was diagnosed with MS in 2015. I had, lots of things going on, numbness, brain fog, the whole works. And I had to tell my kids, my grown kids. And so my husband told them for me. I was in pain. I was really in pain in bed. I had a major migraine headache from the infusion that I got.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so my body reacted to it. It was terrible. So I couldn't do anything. So anyway, here's my husband outside telling my grown children
And how old are your kiddos then?
that I have MS. The youngest at that time was 18. So two twins at 18. And then I had a 21-year-old. 21
Okay.
too. Yeah. And so after he told the kids, my oldest son had his girlfriend with him, and she just graduated from Colorado State University. I live in Fort Collins in dietetics.
Oh, wonderful.
And guess what? Well, you know who's there, right? Or who was there? Dr. Lauren Cordain,
Hmm.
who you've had lots of conversations with, I've heard.
Yeah.
So she walked up to Todd, my husband, and said, Adrienne can manage her MS with diet. And I thought, oh my gosh, okay, well, I'll research that, right? So here I am in bed with my laptop, Terry, and that's when I found your TED Talk. That's when I found your TED Talk. And I watched it for, your 20-minute talk. And I thought,
18 and a half to be precise.
what's that?
18 and a half minutes to be precise.
Okay, 18 and a half minutes. So I thought, oh my God, I can get better. I can heal myself. How come we're not educated on this? How come we don't know this?
Yeah.
This is what's going through my mind, right? And that day I got in my car, drove to the grocery store. We have a natural grocery store called Sprouts here.
I know Sprouts, yeah.
Okay. So I picked up all these fruits, all these organic veggies, right? And all these quality meats. And I just started eating like this, Terry. And then I got better. I got better. After 12 weeks, all my symptoms were gone. The only thing that I still had was the blind spot in my left eye. But guess what? I thought, okay, well, I can live with that. I healed everything else. But guess what? 2 to 3 months later, I got my vision back. Thank you.
Have you ever had that written up as a case report?
I have not.
That might be a really interesting case report if your medical team is open. Do you have a neurologist or primary care team that would be open to writing that up?
I don't know, but I'm going to be honest with you, Terry. After I heard your TED Talk and I started eating like this, I didn't go back. I haven't seen my neurologist since. Have not. I haven't
You see your primary care doc?
Nope.
Well, I do recommend you
feel
periodically
so
check in
good.
with your physicians.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to get another MRI. It would be super interesting. I would predict that the new MRI compared to the old MRI would show remarkable improvement. And then the neurology community would be saying, well, did she really have MS? Maybe we misdiagnosed in the beginning. Your story's not unique. We certainly have heard this from other folks. Another version of this that I've heard is that the physicians aren't talking about diet and lifestyle, but the nurses in the infusion center are giving people handwritten notes. Check out this TED Talk and follow this doctor. And so it's sort of like an underground movement that the nursing staff in the infusion centers are wanting people to know about my TED Talk. And it's when people are getting infusions for systemic autoimmune disease, whether it's multiple sclerosis, inflammatory bowel disease, rheumatoid arthritis, that the infusion center folks, while they're giving them their infusions, are quietly handing little slips of paper saying, check out this TED Talk.
I love that. Well,
Yeah.
my infusion was a steroid, and that's the only drug I ever got. It was like a 3 to 4 drip that I had in a row,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and my
Oh,
body.
superb. And how old were you at the time, Adrienne?
I was 45.
That's the same age that I was diagnosed.
I know.
And typically what happens is that's the age where relapses begin to disappear because our immune cells are getting old. Our immune system is getting old. It's less reactive. People have fewer autoimmune flares, whether it's the relapse with MS, rheumatoid arthritis flares, psoriasis flares, inflammatory bowel disease flares. In its place, for most people, is this slow, relentless decline, worse fatigue, gait is not quite as good, vision is not quite as good, night vision is really hard, brain fog happens, and we have drugs that are really very effective at turning off the relapses, very effective. But the drugs are not effective with stopping this slow decline, because that slow decline is mitochondria driven. If your mitochondria can't make enough ATP, enough energy, the cells, the synapses, the connections between cells deteriorate. The myelin wiring, the insulation around the axons begins to deteriorate. The brain shrinks, the spinal cord shrinks, and we are much more likely to lose our jobs, more likely to need assisted living, more likely to need nursing home care. And MS is the number one cause of early nursing and lengthy nursing home care in the United States. Unless you discover me. Unless you discover me in my message that, you know what, there's a whole lot you can be doing and be sure you were doing it. And I want to be very clear to your audience, I am not anti-FDA approved drug treatments for MS. You can talk to your doc, and depending on how many lesions you have, where they're located, it could be that if you were in my practice, I'd be telling you, take the drugs, because I don't want you to keep having relapses. So that's a very separate decision, taking the drugs or not taking the drugs. Separate decision. There are a lot of factors that go into how important it is to take the drugs. But everyone should be eating intentionally for your mitochondria, probably taking some targeted supplements for your mitochondria, and then addressing sleep, addressing stress, addressing family conflict if you have it, exercise, having a clear meaning and purpose in your life, and staying socially connected. And if you do those things, I predict you'll discover that the decline is stopped, and that, you know what, your energy is a little bit better, your mental clarity is a little bit better, and your body's working better. And your family will say, man, you're looking 5 years younger. Man, you're looking 10 years younger. Wow, I didn't recognize you because you look so good. That's what you'll experience. We see people youthing in front of our eyes. It's just wonderful. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Now,
well, I'm very happy with myself. So
you have some questions. I want to be sure that you have time for your questions. So
yeah.
I'll let you get.
Okay. I want to know what happened to you. So after you gave that TED talk, within a year, I want to know how your life changed, because that was a big moment for you. It's had what?
Yeah,
over
that was a big
1
moment.
million views.
So I'm going to go back a little bit beforehand. When I first started talking to the public about my transformation, I think it was in the fall of 2008, although it might have been the winter of 2009.
Mm-hmm.
I was invited to give a talk to the local MS chapter. I said, sure. I got interviewed by their clinical advisory committee. I told them I was going to tell my story and tell people to improve their diet. And I got banned because my message was dangerous. So I was officially banned. I had to talk to the chief of staff at the Veterans Hospital, so my boss, and my university internal medicine boss to explain like why I'd gotten fired And they said, okay, Terry, you have to learn how to talk about this in public and in the medical records so you won't lose your license. So we have to teach you how to talk about this. So then I went to the committee, the clinic that was for complementary alternative medicine. I learned how to say, I'm supporting the physiology so your cells do the chemistry of life better. Then we'll watch you for your medications, adjust them appropriately. I am not treating disease. I am working on creating health. So I refined my message. And that was good. So by 2011, I'd learned how to talk, carefully, that I was talking about improving the health of the mitochondria. That blew up, of course. And so many patients were going into their neurologist saying, well, what about that doctor? And so there was another round of attacks on me from the neurology and MS community for my dangerous message. And now I would go on podcasts, and some were positive, supportive, like you are being, Adrienne, and others were incredibly hostile. Unfortunately, it gave me a lot of practice learning how to interact with people who were hostile and skeptical, and talking about the difference between creating health and treating disease. The fact that the TED Talk went viral led to a book deal. So I got a book deal with Penguin, and I originally had pitched the idea of doing a memoir. And they said, no, we want a how-to book. So I rewrote my book proposal. It was accepted. That book came out in March of 2014. And that was a phenomenal bestseller, The Wahls Protocol. You probably have it in your hands.
You mean
there it is. Yeah, The Wahls Protocol.
There it is.
And so now, that was super interesting. Then I got that summer, I think it was probably June, the MS Society tracked me down, got me on the phone. They wanted to have a wellness conference and wanted me to come. And I was speaking in New York City that same day and as a plenary speaker. So I said, well, I'm open to this. However, there are a couple of issues. One, I'm a plenary speaker at another conference in New York that same day. So I have to see if they could adjust the day that I'm speaking. And then two, I'm a banned speaker by your organization. And so I need in writing that I'm no longer banned. It took them 20 minutes, but I did get that notification I was no longer banned. So I contacted the other organization. They did move my speaking date, and I went to the wellness conference. And it turned out that their donors had also seen my TED Talk, and they had also gotten my book, and they wanted a wellness conference and wanted me, which is why they got me tracked down. When they had their initial presentations, they had this really interesting graph because they monitor social media to know what their constituents want and are talking about. So before my book came out, the new biologic drugs, Tizabri, the other stuff, that was what everybody was talking about. My book comes out, and then immediately, all the conversation is about the Wahls Protocol, Dr. Terry Wahls, diet, so that was clearly why I was there. And then it was super fun. They had 45 patient advocates, 45 scientists. The patient advocates all had, probably 5 copies of my book each. So when I got there, I was signing everyone's copies. And I thought, okay, I'm probably really annoying the scientist. And then the scientists were saying, well, there's no evidence that diet matters. And I stood up and said, okay, yep, there's no evidence that diet matters for MS, but there's lots of evidence that sugar is really terrible. Ultra-processed foods are really terrible. Vegetables are good. And we could at least agree, society could agree that sugar is bad, vegetables are good, and that ultra-processed foods are bad. We could put that message out. And it was shocking that the scientists said, there's no evidence for that for MS. So I stood back up and I repeated my statements. I said, okay, if the society can't get behind saying vegetables are good and sugar is bad, your constituents will think that you don't care about them. And the 45 patient advocates gave me a standing ovation for that statement. And I thought, okay, I have really pissed off the organization. and the scientists. But it did turn out, by the time I left, the organization conveyed to me, please submit another proposal. We have a great interest in comparing the Swank diet and the Wahls diet. So I did. And they did award us $1 million to investigate that question. And I want everyone in your audience to know the reason the wellness conference happened, the reason the MS Society created the research priorities around diet, exercise, and stress management is because of constituents. The reason the MS Society asked for a study comparing the Wahls and the Swank diet is because of constituents. Your audience has far more power than they realize. If they reach out to the MS Society and say, these are the research questions we want investigated, because they're monitoring social media, that has a huge sway. And the people who are donating, every time you donate, indicate what you care about, because the MS Society responds to that information.
Yeah. I want to talk more about your book.
Okay, it's a great book.
Yeah, it is a great book. Look at all my my markings in it. This was my Bible, Terry. It was my Bible. I want to ask you, so it came out in 2014, but you've had some additions or
right. So
revisement. So what did you do?
In 2020, I updated the book. So I added the latest research at that point on diet, the latest research on electrical stimulation of muscles. And I think I also talked a bit more about exercise. So I updated all of the research. We talked more about ketogenic diets, talked more probably about fasting strategies as well. And what I have since learned is this is so helpful for many different systemic autoimmune diseases. Rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease. I talk about those conditions in the book. And I really guide people on a stepwise fashion to start with level 1, go to level 2. If you have a lot of brain fog, you can think about level 3. And if you have joints that are involved or the gut lining is involved, an elimination diet will be super helpful. And if you haven't gotten the results that you were hoping for on level 2, then I have people do an elimination diet version of that. And that can be very helpful.
Okay. Yeah. So you didn't have the elimination diet in the first book, did you?
I believe I did, but it was not. Actually, I'm not sure that I did.
I don't remember
it. 2014. It may not have been.
Okay.
Or if it was there, it was a much smaller component. I didn't really clarify who would be most likely needing the elimination diet. And then by 2020, I was much clearer. These are the populations that will do better on the elimination diet. And by then, I had been in the using basically the Wahls protocol in my primary care clinics at the VA and in my traumatic brain injury clinic. And what I saw, most people in the VA system needed to make changes at, little steps by step by step by step. However, I would present to people like, okay, given your situation, because you have severe rheumatoid arthritis, the diet that I think will be most effective is the elimination diet. And this is what that looks like. And if you think you can do it, we'll launch it. If that feels too hard, that's okay. We'll just start step by step with a much smaller change. And what I saw is by giving people the option of, I can give you the big, most effective program, or we could start with the small, achievable next step. You need to tell me which approach is the one that you want to have. And some people, they're miserable enough, like, I'm ready for the big program. Others, even though they're quite miserable, they're like, I can't do something that big. I need a smaller next step.
Yeah, I understand that. There's some people who,
Well,
that can make big changes, and there's some
right.
people that have a difficult time with that.
For most of us, we do change in small incremental steps, unless there's a catastrophic life event going on.
Right.
Then we're like, it feels more like life or death, and I'm ready to do something because there's such a catastrophic change.
Right. Can you explain like how the elimination diet works, just in simple terms?
Oh, sure. So one of the first steps that happen with autoimmunity is a leaky gut. And so the connections, I'll have show my fingers here, which should be really tight so nothing from inside the gut gets in the bloodstream. But sometimes it breaks down. And so now we have openings. And so food particles that haven't been fully digested get into the bloodstream. And those food particles look like foreign bacteria. So my immune system, trying to take care of me, mounts antibodies and immune attacks against these food proteins. And unfortunately, some of the food proteins look like brain structures or joint structures or skin structures or lung structures. So depending on what they look like, that's your genetics. The immune attack damages like collateral damage. So in MS, for you and me, that was our brain, our optic nerves, our spinal cord. And it's because it starts with the leakiness of the gut that let food proteins out. The elimination diet is based on the most common food proteins that are triggering that immune response. So we have you reduce those food proteins that trigger that immune response. And so we have a pretty comprehensive list of foods that you're not going to eat for 12 weeks. While as we improve your health overall, for many people, the gut lining then, I'm going to sort of skewer my face, begins to heal up, close up. And now if you look at my hands, the food proteins can't get out. They stay in the gut where they're supposed to belong. My immune cells quiet down. And hopefully you've done the other good things like better sleep, less family conflict, more time in nature, more time outside, some targeted supplements. So, overall total care. And then after 12 weeks, we encourage you to begin reintroducing the foods we had you take out one food item at a time to make sure that you can tolerate. And what we find is the vast, vast majority of foods that you took out will be fine to bring back. We warn people that gluten and dairy are the two that I do not recommend retesting because you'll probably fail. But all the other things, the nightshades, the eggs, the gluten-free grains, they can probably come back. And depending on your other health goals, we may encourage you to have very limited grain and a limited amount of legumes, so we keep your carbohydrate count a little bit lower.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Was that all pretty clear? I hope.
Yeah. That worked for me. I remember I ate a little bit of rice, and I didn't have to eliminate nightshades. I ate eggs. My body likes eggs.
Well, eggs are really a superfood. And so I encourage people to take them out briefly and then reintroduce them, because if you can tolerate the eggs, and I'd say about 2/3 of our patients tolerate eggs, they really are a superfood. And recently, and for years, I did not eat eggs because, when I have a food that I'm sensitive to, I get my trigeminal neuralgia flares. And that is so painful. It is very difficult to intentionally eat a food that I had known to be a trigger.
Yeah.
So, but I did eventually test eggs. I tolerate them now, and so I get to have eggs. I've also reintroduced goat cheese, and I'll have that on occasion, and I tolerate that well.
Yeah, same here. Once in a while. And then I also tell people, eat eggs from pasture-raised chickens if you
Much
can.
better for you.
Yeah, more omega-3, more vitamin E, etc., vitamin D.
Correct. Much, much better for you. All that green material in the insects, very much better for you. And if you look at the yolks are just so much more brilliant.
Yes, they're more orange in color
Yeah,
usually.
yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
a lot of lutein, zeaxanthin, mesozeaxanthin, tremendous, tremendous for you.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about your clinical trials.
Yes. I do this.
So,
This is so much fun. When I was doing the hostile interviews, and I still occasionally get into a hostile interview, people will tell me that you clearly did not have multiple sclerosis because nobody can come back from that severe disability. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Let's agree to disagree. And now we'll look at the peer-reviewed scientific evidence that I have, where we've taken another MS specialist who confirmed the MS diagnosis. Then we give them the study intervention and see prospectively what happens. And look at those studies and the level of responses that we have. And I've now done 12 clinical trials that are either completed or we're still collecting data. So we have lots of peer-reviewed public publications, over 100 abstracts, posters, research. So
I love it. So
we
you're
got a
still
lot of
doing
stuff.
trials today, right?
Yeah, so we have a trial that's going on. We'll probably have our last study visit in the month of August, so they'll be coming up. It's a 2-year study, so this will be the longest study intervention. That's a diet intervention that includes MRIs, that includes clinical visits, that includes blood biomarkers. So we have lots of stuff. The primary outcome is change in quality of life at 6 months. And we're comparing a modified paleo elimination diet in the time-restricted olive oil ketogenic diet and usual diet with the 2020 dietary guidelines information provided. And we have an encouragement text with some interesting diet resources that goes to that group every month. The other group has a group support call with a dietitian every month. And super fun. I certainly have not looked at any of the outcomes data other than safety. And I can tell you, we certainly have no serious adverse events. Over 2 years, stuff does happen. People lose jobs, they move. There's a death in the family. Car accidents happen. 2 years is a long time, and there's a lot of life events that happen when you enroll 162 people. But it looks like we'll have 145 that have given us data through 2 years. So that's an extraordinary level of keeping people 92%. And it looks like we'll have probably 78, 79% come back in for the MRIs at the beginning and at the end. And that's good because we had powered. So you do preliminary research to estimate how many people you need to detect a measurable difference. And then when you do a diet study, because we know life happens, lots of things happen, and you'll lose people. So in our clinical trials, we assume a 30% dropout rate for that reason. So by the fact that we'll have 78% is what we project to come back for our return visit. I'm pretty excited. Whatever we find, it's going to be super interesting. How those 3 diets affect quality of life, affect mood, affect mental clarity, affect measurable function, and affect brain structure. How many lesions? What kind of lesion volume change? And is there atrophy? We know it's sort of a bummer since I'm soon to be 71 that after age 40, there really is a measurable volume loss every year. And if you have MS, that volume loss on average is about 1% per year. If you are healthy, the loss is 0.3% per year. So, I mean, I'm thinking that one of the things that we'll be able to measure is how close were we able to get people off the 1% per year track down to healthy aging or closer to healthy aging at 0.3%. So I mean, we'll have so many interesting papers to write in terms of looking at vision changes, looking at cognitive changes, looking at biomarkers, MRIs. My postdocs will probably have 7 to 10 papers coming out of this study. And by the way, so we have been funded by the NIH. We've been funded by a charity out of Canada a couple times. And otherwise, I have been funded by the generosity of the donors whose lives we've changed, either because they were a personal patient or saw my TED Talk. And we have relationships with people from all over the country that have supported the lab and helped make my most recent study, the Efficacy of Diet and Quality of Life study, happen.
So, Dr. Wahls, how long can someone expect to be on that trial? Is it like a year or?
Oh, it's a two-year intervention. So we enroll you. We enrolled them. They came back at 3 months, and then they come back at 24 months. They do a lot of surveys for us every 6 months, and so it's a long time. It is a very long time because for all of us, I mean, if I look back at my last 2 years, there were a lot of things that happened, you know.
Yeah. So is it just 2 groups of people? So one more paleo based?
So a paleo group, a keto group, and a usual diet. And the usual diet group got to have information about the Dietary Guidelines of America from 2020.
Got it. And so even today, if somebody wanted to sign up for it, they can go to your website?
Nope. Well, yes. So I want them to come to my website because we have other studies that they could join. So if you go to terrywahls.com/trials, sign up for the patient registry. If you have MS or any complicated chronic disease, we want you in the registry so you can get notified when we have new studies coming forward. Then we do have studies for people with rheumatoid arthritis and other rheumatologic autoimmune diseases, people with mood disorders, anxiety, and depression. We don't quite have permission to recruit for that globally yet. We're very close to having IRB approval. So if you have a mood problem, sign up for the registry because once we are approved, we can then pull the mood people out of our registry and email you details. And we also have fibromyalgia and long COVID. And when I get new studies, they will go there. And people should know that we have a grant under review for a progressive MS study. So that'd be primary progressive, secondary progressive. And super excited about that study. We'll plan to recruit 118 people. And I'll know if I got approved for that grant sometime in July. And we have a target date of starting in October. And I'm very optimistic about this being able to do the progressive MS study.
This is fantastic.
And I want to point out to your listeners that if you go to clinicaltrials.gov, there are no other progressive MS studies. Certainly none that teach people how to address all the environmental factors that contribute to why we experience progression. It would be an amazing study. I want everyone who's listening to this podcast, please register for my registry. And we anticipate being able to have a progressive MS study open sometime in the fall.
I love it. Have you been able to get any results that you can share yet, or are you going to wait?
You cannot share any results. So I don't see them. The results I can share is the fact that we can get people to stay engaged in the study at a 92% rate completion for all of our surveys is extraordinary. The fact it looks like we're going to get 78% of people to come back after 2 years is extraordinary. So that kind of stuff I can talk about. We don't analyze any results until the very end, and we share them with what's called the Data Safety Monitoring Board. They have to approve the results. Then once those are approved, then we can submit a abstract of our findings to research meetings. So there are some MS research meetings that happen in the winter and spring of 2027. And I'm hopeful that we'll be presenting our results there. And so after they have been presented, then yes, I would be able to talk about those results. So there's a big sequence. And after we've presented results in our scientific meetings, then my postdocs will be writing the first draft of the manuscript. I give them some feedback. We get it finalized. Then we go look for a journal that would publish it. And usually the first one says no, maybe the second one says no, and then about the third one says, oh yeah. And we have a little back and forth to get them to approve it, and then it's published. So the typical sequence is you get your findings in a scientific meeting within the first 6 months after you have them. Then it takes another 6 months to a year to get those results written up into a publication. So I'm hopeful that we'll have a publication that would be on my website and at the university website in 2028. It's painfully slow. Painfully slow. Sure. And now the good news is I enjoy my work. I love teaching students. I love having postdocs. And we have more research projects planned that would take the next 3 years. So I probably have 5 more years worth of work and publications that are planned. It's my family's asking, okay, so when are you going to retire? What's the plan here? And I do have competing interests because I now have a grandson that I want to be sure that I have time for. And so we are working on that. As a matter of fact, tomorrow the daycare is closed, and grandma is wanting to go over and be helpful.
I love that. I'm a grandma too, so I understand.
Yeah, so you have to have your priorities.
Yes, you do. Okay, so you are still a doctor and you still have patients, right?
So I'm still a physician. I have just a handful of patients.
Okay.
When my grandson was born, I wound down my practice, and a couple of my existing patients convinced me to continue to let them come see me. So I have just a handful of private patients. Otherwise, I help people through my online programs. So we have a variety of online programs that people can interact virtually with me that are really, really quite wonderful. And then I have webinars that are educational webinars that are free. So again, everyone on the audience should be sure to go to my website, sign up for my email so you can hear about the free webinars that we have that are just wonderful resources for you.
Okay. Well, here's what I was going to ask. If you have a MS patient come to you, because I know you prescribe food, right? It's part of your
food is the thing.
So do you prescribe more of your protocol, which I'm guessing you do, or do you do keto? Do you prescribe any?
So I really want to understand their comorbid problems. And by comorbid, I mean, what else is going on for you and your family? Are we talking about severe obesity, insulin resistance, polycystic ovarian disease, fatty liver disease, psychoses, schizophrenia? Are we talking about eating disorders? Are we talking about obsessive compulsive behaviors? Do you have any other autoimmune condition? So I want to have all of those issues. And then the next question is, do you want a big plan that is the most therapeutically effective? Or do we need a smaller plan So we have the whole family buying in on this, because both approaches are correct. I really, really want to understand the person, the family, and their goals. And then we tailor the diet intervention to
For their
that
case.
circumstance, right? So
Yeah.
for some people, it's a ketogenic diet. For some, it's a elimination diet. For some, it's Wahls level 2. For some, it's a Mediterranean diet.
Okay.
So there are many options that I think about, but the most important part of this is understanding the patient and their family environment.
Sure. Okay, that's great. So another question for you. Has anyone come to you asking you about helping somebody with Parkinson's or
Oh yeah,
ALS?
we help people with Parkinson's. I have people with ALS, with cognitive decline. We have people with genetic disorders. Isn't this wild? So the people with genetic disorders, their stories, and it's a wide variety of genetic disorders that I've never heard of, that I have to go look up. They're like, okay, what is this? Their medical team has said, okay, we've done all that we can, and this is just how life's going to be. And then fortunately for these people, someone sends them my book and says, you ought to read this book and try it. And their lives are transformed. Now, the people don't become genetically normal, so they still have whatever genetic disorder they have. But if you work to help their mitochondria work better, and you address the things I talk about in my book, what people find is their function is improved. Their quality of life is improved. And they can tell if they're eating the plan or they're not eating the plan. So I've seen this in adults with genetic disorders like muscular dystrophy, cystic fibrosis, in children with genetic disorders, Prader-Willi, Mitchell syndrome. So my advice to your listeners is, our cells do about 2 billion chemical reactions every second, which is sort of wild. You can take a drug that interferes with one of those chemical reactions that has been FDA approved to treat some symptom or some disease state. And if you have a genetic disorder, the chemical reactions are happening and they aren't happening quite correctly. But if we help you fix your nutrition, and probably use targeted supplements that really provide a amped up level of support for your mitochondria, what we discover is we can bypass a lot of the genetic stuff that's going wrong, and people function remarkably better. And if you do that for children, sometimes you get a stunning level of functional improvement that baffles the physicians.
I love it.
Even I have some muscular dystrophy patients who are having their lives transformed, having figured out the Wahls protocol and the support for mitochondria that we've developed.
I also like the fact that you've talked about it's not all food. It's getting outside. It's getting exercise the best way you can, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Relationships, mental health is really important. And it's funny because in my whole journey, I thought it was only food, right? Because food is what helped me heal. But I realized that while I was healing with food, I had joy in my life. The fact that my emotions and the joy that I had, because I knew I was going to get better, I just knew I was going to get better.
Yeah.
That helped me heal too.
So important. I love that you're using the word joy. I also use the word savor. So savor your relationships, acknowledge them, work with them. Yes, it's okay to have difficult conversations, and I'm going through that process. And what the family member and I that are having these challenging conversations is, we both really appreciate that we're having, in many ways, deeper conversations than we've had in a long time that are much more profound. And so savor those relationships, acknowledge them, support them. And one of the research meetings that I was at had this wonderful presentation, this wonderful chart at the end that talked about, if you look at the research in terms of the degree of reduction for all-cause mortality, and these are observational studies, so they're not interventional, but they looked at having a good adherence to Mediterranean diet, meeting physical activity goals, which are good. That's about 20 to 34% reduction in all-cause mortality. So very, very helpful. Absolutely. Turns out being lonely, is like smoking.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Sitting is like smoking.
Yeah.
Being deeply connected to other people, that's a 43% reduction. Having a clear sense of purpose and meaning, that's a 53% reduction. So it's not that I'm still not passionate about food. Food is vital. You got to fix your diet. It's so vital. But also fix your relationships. Have people you care about. And a strategy that I use to help people clarify what's important is, imagine your house is beginning to burn. Smoke's rolling out the window. What would you save? Who would you save? That you would, without a moment's hesitation, run even barefoot over broken glass to save. And of course, for most people, we know immediately, it's my grandson. I'd run in front of a car to save him. Absolutely.
Right.
My spouse, my children. So nearly everyone has an immediate answer. Sometimes it's a dog or a cat, and that's okay. We want to have someone. If you don't have someone, then I think we need to send you to talk therapy to address the wounds that are in your heart that are preventing you from having someone or a purpose.
Yes.
And if people, once they figure out who they're going to run in to save, then the next really interesting question I ask is, if your health improved just a little bit, what would you be able to do with that? What do you want to be able to do again that you can't? And, it's a variety of things. I want to get on the ground to play with my grandchildren. I want to walk my dog around the block. I want to go dancing with my honey again. So there's something people want to do. Now I have a clear goal in mind that we can say, okay, I want to support your doing that goal. So now we could talk about ways to support that. And we could talk about whether it's nutrition or physical therapy or family talk therapy. There's some intervention that we can talk about that they would be interested in. I've hooked it up to something they care about. And that's why in my clinical trials, we have adherence rates 83 to 95%. Extraordinary adherence, because we take the time to help people go through that sequence of how they think, why this matters. And this is the intervention that I'm going to work on to make it easier to do this thing that I just told you really would tickle my heart.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, I've got one more question for you.
Yeah.
Just because, I didn't need any MS drugs, and I know you support people that, would like to take an MS drug to help their relapses, etc.
Yeah.
Do you help people wean off of drugs when they're feeling better?
If you're in my private practice, I will talk to people about continuing to work with their neurologist. And the criteria for getting off DMTs is pretty straightforward. You want to have stability. So 3 years, no relapses. 3 years, no new lesions on the MRI. And then the neurologist, particularly if you're 45 or older, because relapses are really decreased, then we can transition from your potent drugs to a less potent drug with fewer side effects. Often that's Copaxone, or it might be Tecfidera, one of those two. And then they're looking like, okay, So now we want to have stability on that drug. And so the variation is at 1 year or 3 years. And then the next question is, well, I want to get off. And of course, the patient is the driver in all of this. I tell people that's the conventional approach, is 3 years from highly potent to 3 years, moderately potent to off. You can push to shorten those, but that is the conventional approach. And it's the neurologist and the patient in that interchange that's going to happen. What I see is most people whose lives are transformed, who really see this dramatic improvement in function, feeling so much better, they're not wanting to wait the whole 3 years. I impress everyone, for heaven's sakes, wait at least a year between each interventions. Because and then keep getting the surveillance MRIs to document that you're doing well. And it's very common that people, after a year of doing great, no relapses, no new lesions, say, look, I went off this, whether it's the high potency, a lot of side effects, or moderate potency, no side effects. After people have had at least a year of doing great on either the high potency or the moderate potency, it's very common for them to say, we have to have a tapering schedule here, and I'll still do. I really press people to keep doing the surveillance. I think that's worthwhile, and don't stop the treatment without talking to your neurologist. You certainly are the one. It's your body, so you get to have a very strong opinion. Like, okay, I'm doing well. I want the tapering schedule, and your neurologist will listen to that. Now, they might fire you, and then you have to go find another neurologist. But it's your body. You're the one who has to consent.
Thank you for explaining that. Okay, as I'm wrapping up, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you would like to share?
Well, be sure to follow me on Instagram. You get to see what I'm eating and doing. I occasionally put my video where I go out of my sauna and go roll in the snow. I do have a swimsuit on, so but that people love that. When I put that video up, last time it went up, I had 4 million views. So it's a very fun video. It's an old swimsuit that's a little bit baggy. It's so you can tell it's a very authentic Dr. Wahls kind of thing to do.
You know what? You're just being you. I love that about you. Well, thank you for coming on the show today. This has come full circle for me because I feel like I owe you my life. I really, truly believe that. Thank you so much for having the courage to get up on that TED Talk stage. And, you know, I was so lucky that I found it and I got to follow you. Thank you for sharing your story. And you've been changing millions of lives. And thank you from the bottom of my heart, really, for helping people getting their life back. Thank you so much.
You know, I know you put this in the show notes, but I'll say it verbally. Come follow me on my Instagram, Dr. Terry Wahls, DrTerry, Wahls, Wahls. Facebook is Terry Wahls, X is Terry Wahls, and my website, terrywahls.com. You'll see lots of great articles, blogs. Be sure to sign up for my newsletter so you can get the emails that tells you about the free webinars that I do often once a month.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.